And if some of these guys are coming here that are the smartest people, why not keep them? Why not recognize them? Why not respect the fact that they create jobs? One of the tweets, I said, our founding fathers, a guy responds back and says, those are not your founding fathers. Mm-hmm. Guy posts a picture of the Shah of Iran, says, that's your founding father.
Oh, so funny.
But that tells you what, a part of this, there's nationalists and there's white nationalists. Mm-hmm. White nationalists, Vinny, don't want people like us here.
I know.
They just don't. White nationalists are a very different model. And they can have that argument, but this got very ugly very quick.
Yeah, no, you're spot on with the white nationalist thing. So,
gotta say a huge shout out to the community note feature, which really got under PBD's skin. Again, all these guys, they claim to love Elon's takeover of X, or formerly Twitter, until specific things like this end up biting them in the ass, whether it's, them getting demonetized for criticizing Elon Musk, or community notes accidentally coming in clutch, which seemingly is the one aspect of X which is not controlled by Elon Musk acolytes. Like, seemingly there is a faction of just normal, rational, educated people out there that like control community notes and for the most part use it for good,
kind of
as
like
we see here. Yeah, much like Wikipedia, which you guys will notice there's an increasing drumbeat against all these MAGA people. They hate Wikipedia. And don't get me wrong, if I had a Wikipedia article and it was like, Gavin is a well-known pseudoscientific monger of misinformation and conspiracy theories, I might also be a little bit pissed about that. So I kind of understand it, but it is something that I've increasingly noticed.
100%. And the thing about PBD is these guys, I don't know what it is. They think they can go into media like this and have nobody uncover any of the facts of their past. Like, how did this guy get to power? What's crazy is that he hasn't ever really felt the need to hide it, right? He's been pretty brazen in it. I didn't see his first appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience until about 45 minutes ago. I watched a little montage at the beginning of whatever video Gavin has. I think we might play it later. But it's crazy how this was his identity. We became familiar with PBD because we were dunking on some of his ridiculous takes from the show, but he seemingly got that show's reputation off the ground by presenting himself as a businessman. This has been the bedrock of everything that he comes to talk about. He didn't start being like, I have a new vision for conservative America, I'm an average guy. No, he came at it like, I'm he talks like this, like he's the kind of guy. Let me be clear. Let me talk to you about this. Let me tell you that I'm the kind of guy that you can already tell takes my children's soccer games way too seriously. Okay, when I stand on the sidelines, okay, I'm in a tracksuit. Okay, and I think that right now I'm watching my children do the Olympics. But he made his money by founding a predatory multi-level marketing pyramid scheme, which he then used to market himself as a business guru, right? This is like the highest level of being a scam artist.
Yep, 100%. And I think like Patrick Bet-David definitely falls into the category of someone who I think transcends just being a political commentator. What he really is in his heart of heart is a freaking motivational speaker. You know what I'm saying? He's one of those kind of guys. He's a motivational speaker, but with a right-wing kind of brand, which helps him in the YouTube algorithm. As you guys know, that's a big way to have a career, is if you just want to be a right-wing propagandist. So he's kind of combined those two worlds. And what is undeniable about Patrick Bet-David, what you cannot take away from the guy, is that he has made himself very rich. Much like Vivek Ramaswamy and a lot of these guys that, basically just do scams until they're insanely rich, and then pretend like, oh, I'm this, respected, serious business person. No, you're not. You just made yourself phenomenally rich through, legal loopholes that you're able to exploit people under and dodge, regulatory agencies in order to make millions. That's what happens. But you didn't improve humanity at all. And that's what I think normie people should really ask themselves when they start listening to some motivational speaker, some, business mogul kind of guy who's giving them advice. Has this person actually contributed anything to society? Anything to humanity? You know what I'm saying? Like, sure, they made themselves rich, but was that just based off of exploiting people like me, other working class people? That's what folks should be asking themselves. Because I get that there's a real appetite out there for this exact genre of content. People that genuinely want to be successful. They want to do something that makes them happy and fulfills them in life. That's totally normal. I think we've all experienced that. And up until Zach and I started the podcast, we were in a similar place where it's like, how do we make it? Like, I don't want to exploit anyone, but I do want to be successful. Everyone can relate to that, even those on the left, which is, again, what makes PBD so insidious. He claims to have the answers. He claims to be someone worth listening to, someone worth taking advice from, but he's contributed absolutely nothing to humanity, nothing to society, nothing to America. He's a leech. He's a leech on society that's exploited poor and ignorant people like you to enrich himself.
That there's so much you said that I wish I could just bottle and like give to every single person that thinks that PBD is a leader. And I want to start slowly unpacking all of that, and then we'll get back to PBD's hole that he's built for himself, because there was so much incredible commentary there. The first thing I want to talk about is how you're totally right. He's doing this Tony Robbins shtick, right? And I guarantee you he realized that was going to make him even more successful when he saw how much Joe Rogan wove that into his podcast in a way that made him like essential viewing to all of these get up and get after it kind of a bros, right? It was this idea that Joe Rogan also was really addicted to those Tony Robbins like self-improvement takes. You know, he talks about how he got, you know, Dianetics. He talked about how he knew all of those guys. Like he wanted to be a guy that made it. He was so driven towards being successful. And let's identify what that feeling is, because as Gavin said, we all feel it, and you feel it so strong when you're 18 or 19 years old. I felt it so bad, and I was so ashamed of myself, and I couldn't ever believe that people would want something that I created, because I got really embarrassed when I was a kid. And I was like, I have to go be in business school. I have to do something that makes me a cog in the machine, that makes it so that I'm not poor and destitute, right? Because you just don't believe in yourself, right? And so you're like fucking desperate, and then you listen to all of these goons and gurus and con men, and they start they get rich trying to tell you how to get rich, right? Even though the only way that they got rich was stealing, right? You guys know how we get the term snake oil salesman? Because back in the Sweeney Todd era, right, there would be guys, they would go around and they would talk about how they had miracle cures, right? And they would sell you this snake oil, right? Maybe they would say it was curing baldness, right? And then they would pour it over the guy's head, and then they would, stay there for a few days. And then the next day he would wake up and they would super glue it to his head, hair to his head, right? And then they would move on to the next town before anybody realized it was fake. That's what PBD did in the internet age, right? That's how he made himself a guru. And then he plagiarized a lot of techniques that were successful for other people, and he kind of stitched it all together, and he created the veneer of a successful person. But as soon as you look under the surface, which we're going to, you'll see that it's all a house of cards. It's all a sandcastle, right? He basically just pillaged and stole, and it's no different than if he would have walked into a bunch of these poor people's houses, took their china, and hawked it at the pawn shop.
Yep, 100%. With that said, Zach, do you want to take a look at his one of his most recent episodes where he gets into some of the backlash? Because actually, before we do that, let's quickly take a look at this one more time, because I think we put it up on screen, but didn't really actually talk about it. So, he put out this tweet about how Vivek Ramaswamy was right. Obviously, Vivek put out that really crazy post on X the other day, talking about how like American culture is lazy and how we watch too much sitcoms, and we don't watch enough movies like Whiplash and insane shit like that. Patrick Bet-David agreed with Vivek, and he said, as an immigrant from Iran, I saw this as an edge. I don't mind working 80 hours a week. I don't mind the competition. All I wanted was a shot. This used to be the American way. Time to return to it. Take a minute to read. And then that's where the community note came in and called him out, said that he made his money by founding a multi-level marketing pyramid scheme. To that, he responded, "Hey, Elon Musk, I appreciate the value of community notes and fact-checking misinformation, but this particular note falls short of the platform's stated objectives. It feels more like a personal attack tied to my stance on H-1B visas, resembling the flaws of Wikipedia, where anyone can spread libel or defame someone's character. Doesn't this undermine the integrity of X's commitment to fair and unbiased information?" So that's a taste of the backlash that PBD started to receive on Twitter. And again, a lot of it actually stemmed from hardcore MAGA fans who were really pissed off at him for agreeing with Vivek Ramaswamy. Again, Vivek Ramaswamy unironically made a post that right-wingers would describe as containing anti-white racism. Again, I'm not the kind of person that engages in the anti-white racism discourse. I don't give a fuck. You can insult white culture all you want.
This cracker ass.
But to these right-wingers, the Vivek post was salt in the wound. And then Patrick Bet-David jumping on the bandwagon and saying, yes, as another immigrant, as someone who's also not a native born American, I agree. American culture is trash. It was better. It's better when people like me come from Iran and work 80 hours a week than you idiots playing football and watching TV. right? That's unironically what's happening, guys. It's unironically what's happening. It's like when you hear like people, like the Chinese governmental officials making fun of America because like all we do is, you know, watch Spider-Man and SpongeBob and stuff. That's what Patrick Bet-David and Vivek Ramaswamy are doing. They're literally echoing like Chinese Communist Party talking points. And they think they're going to get let off the hook by the Republican base. Are you kidding me? They think they're going to get let off the hook by the Republican base, who number one issue is their hatred of immigrants?
Yeah, this is where it all starts to fall apart, right? This is where the wall comes tumbling down. The mirage in the desert starts to wane because these guys hate poor people. They're disgusted by the white working class and the white working poor of the South that Donald Trump has used as the base of the MAGA movement, right? But they know that Donald Trump is the guy that's going to give them the H-1B visas anyway. And they also, you know what I mean? So that's why they're allied with the MAGA movement, because it's good for rich assholes. Okay, not because they care about the working class. Really quickly before we get into PBD, I just want to let everybody know CoffeeZilla, probably the most trusted scam, defraudster, whatever you want to call it, on YouTube. And this is 60 seconds of him talking about how, without a doubt, this is a multi-level marketing scheme, and just how criminally underpaid the people that PHP, the Patrick Bet-David company, were, like how underpaid they were. It's crazy.
Let's take a look.
Kinds of businesses. So I wanted to make sure we measured the licensed agents, and they said this is licensed agents. Well, let's check out the numbers. $800,000 of income. That's pretty good. Well, how many people get that? 0.13%. Okay. So it drops.
That's like one person. Okay. That's one person, maybe two people.
Pretty steeply off from that. Okay. 300,000. Not bad. 0.14%. Now going on from that, like you basically have 1% of people making a really good income, it seems like. Because 0.75% make $148,000. That's a great living. You're going to do very well with that. Well, now we drop into the middle class, right? 1% of the people do that. It's still great. Still good.
So let's pause right there and take a look at that. 2%. I know on a chart like this, it makes it look like, okay, we're dealing with a lot of brackets. No, that's 2% of all of the licensed individuals that Patrick Bet-David employed made all of this money. Probably family members, right? Probably people that knew PBD personally. Not so much the folks that paid for his course. Not so much the people that paid for their licensing fee. We're going to hear about them. That's 2% of the people were able to make what could be described in any of the 50 states as a living wage. 2%.
Compensation. Here's where it really falls off. Down here, I don't know if you can see that, 64% of paid agents, these are agents getting paid, made $200. The vast majority of people who made money with PHP barely paid off their enrollment fee of $200 that year. You hardly broke even on an enrollment fee, over half. Now, 20% of them made $2,000 in a single year. Terrible income. Let's just be honest. That's like a side hustle at best. 7,000, same thing. 6% of people made that, meaning that about 90% of PHP's employees also make less than, take a guess. Everyone got their guess ready? McDonald's employees.
Meanwhile, he'll go ahead and talk down on McDonald's employees and talk about how that's not serious work. You need to be doing serious work for Patrick Bet-David. So just to give everybody a clear idea, that's CoffeeZilla, right? The guy's been on Rogan. The guy's been on every noteworthy podcaster show with millions of subscribers. Okay. You heard it from the horse's mouth. You heard it from the guy who does the debunking. Okay. Without a doubt, not biased news reporting. It is an MLM scam.
Oh, yeah. It's not even a debate. That's the funny thing about PBD's outrage over the community note. It's not a fucking debate, guys. That is unironically how he started his career, how he got so rich and successful before YouTube. It's well documented. Look it up. His insurance business was, without a doubt, 100% the definition of a multi-level marketing scheme. It's not up for debate. At this point, I wish he would just own it and be like, yeah, that's what I did. It's legal. You can do it too. Might as well, right? All capitalism is exploitative. Is it really that much different than, starting a business where you exploit your workers? Like, it's really not. So you could excuse it. You could make up justifications for it. But he just wants to deny it and pretend like, what? I was a totally above board, insurance businessman. No, you fucking weren't.
If he understood Trumpism in his core, that's exactly what he would have done.
Yeah.
He would have said, what did I do? I came to America and I said, I'm going to read the first book in the library. Okay. You go to America. I came to a middle America country or from another country, right? I say, I'm going to pull myself up by my books. I go to the library, right? Because that's available to everyone. I pull a book off the shelf. It's called Tom Sawyer. Okay. I open to the page. I read about how Tom Sawyer doesn't want to do his whitewashing. He wants to have his friends do it.
Exactly.
He wants to sit back. That's America. Okay. Folks, that's what I did. I said, you know what? What am I? I'm a sharp looking guy. I'm a smart guy. I'm very smart. I'm very intelligent. Okay. I come to this country. I'm willing to work 80 hours a week scamming others. Okay. I'm willing to be the predator on this block, that block, the next block, every block. If I'm on it, I'm the alpha. I'm the predator. I'm the apex. He could have gone out there and made that spiel, and that would have at least had some level of honesty. Okay. It would have at least had some level of sincerity, right? He could have gone out there and he could have said, I'm the next Donald Trump. I'm the captain now. I'm swinging my dick and I'm being the fucking, pirate of this ship. That's what he could have done. But it's humiliating for him to act like everybody else is lying about him when the proof is in the pudding.
Yep, 100%, 100%. So let's take a look here. We're going to see a couple different interesting moments from this recent PBD live stream, which went down right after all this Twitter drama. Like I said, PBD has for the most part been embraced by MAGA, but when he sided with Vivek and Elon and against the populist base of anti-immigrant MAGA voters, they turned on him pretty quickly. And I think you'll notice his mood throughout this episode is noticeably subdued. He seems a little bit pissed off. He seems a little bit short-tempered, even with his own co-hosts, something that is increasingly being noticed by the PBD audience. They're starting to call him out for treating his co-hosts like shit and for constantly disrespecting them, cutting them off, not really having...
Because the audience agrees with the co-hosts.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, why are you treating these people like this? Even when they're just making points, he'll be like, all right, wrap it up. Like, we're going to move on. Like, every time someone else tries to make a point, it's crazy. But either way, let's take a look. We're also going to see a few moments in this interview or in this live stream where PBD and crew realize in real time that a decent portion of MAGA is literally white supremacists. And they use that exact label. So that's gonna be pretty funny too. Again, as soon as they get fucking criticized, all of a sudden they want to label their right-wing critics what? Racist. Oh, yeah, what? Yeah, well, I thought we weren't allowed to say that about anyone that disagrees with us. I thought we weren't allowed to, call anyone racist or white supremacist, Zach, but apparently that's all out the window now that PBD had his feelings hurt.
100%. And we're also going to talk about how instead of making really legitimate class-based points, that they actually miss the boat entirely and go for a cheap racist dog whistle instead of actually packing a punch in what could have been a unifying opportunity for the show. So they miss every opportunity. They swing at a bunch of stuff and they don't come away with anything. But let's take a look here. We're going to debunk it as it comes. This first clip kind of talks a lot about, it basically sets the stage for their H-1B visa debate during this entire broadcast.
B1 visas for us to start off. Well, let me just read one of them here to you. What to know about the H-1B1 visa fueling the divide in a MAGA world. Let me kind of read this story and then we'll get into a few clips. The H-1B visa program, which allows highly skilled workers in specialty occupations to live and work temporarily in the U.S., is at the center of a divide in MAGA world. Proponents like Musk, himself a former H-1B holder, argue it helps the U.S. retain a competitive edge in the STEM field, while hardliners such as activists like Laura Loomer insist the U.S. should prioritize.
I think it's hilarious when he describes Laura Loomer as an activist. I also saw your face light up.
I think the only reason he actually did that is because he wants to associate that position with the craziest possible person who holds it. So the whole way he frames this is that Elon Musk is on this side, the side I'm on, and Laura Loomer is on the other side, the side that all my critics are on. So who are you with? The smartest, richest guy in the world or this dumb, crazy bitch?
American workers, H-1B visas capped at 85,000 new approvals annually, require employer sponsorship and are granted for up to 6 years. In 2023, 72% of recipients were from India, followed by China, 12%, and the Philippines, 1%. The program does not provide a path to permanent residency as it grants only non-immigrant status. Tom, your thoughts on what's going on here with the H-1B?
And he says a lot in that last little segment, and I'm going to try not to break in too many times during this, but the whole idea about H-1B visas and why guys like Donald Trump love them, why he's okay with it, and why he doesn't feel like it flies in the face of his, whiteness of America is because it's temporary visas, right? These give so much power to the corporations. They basically can treat you however you want, and if you want to stay in America, you're like tethered to this job, right? You can't just
It's like
negotiate.
indentured servitude. Yeah.
Right. And it's crazy too, because all of these assholes talk about how freedom is what makes this country great. The free market. Oh my God, I love the free market. But they don't want any of these H-1B visa workers to be participating in the free market. That's why they're dramatically underpaid. They can't be like, fuck you, I'm leaving. I don't like working at X anymore. I want to go work at Instagram. I want to go work at, Chat GPT. I want to go work wherever in San Francisco. No, they're tethered to this job. They're not going to get promotions. They're not going to get raises. They're not going to get opportunities. And then on top of all of that, they're not even working towards citizenship or permanent residency.
H-1B visa debate.
So there's a lot of angles here, a lot of angles to go. And so the first angle that I'm going to go with is, I like to say, if you want to look at a problem, you got to go upstream a little bit, right?
This guy's an idiot.
I talk about the polluted lake. Liberals want to build a $1 billion filter. Conservatives want to go upstream and say, hey, what are the creeks and rivers putting in the lake? And then stop it upstream. And it's an easy way to the problem. The first thing that I think nobody was talking about over the weekend, and I think we should talk about it for a minute, is you got to go upstream. What is happening? Why aren't there? Now, some people say there's plenty, and I saw that argument. Some people say there wasn't enough of American
This guy's trying to do his best, Donald Trump.
engineering graduates. Now, why wouldn't there be enough American engineering graduates? Well, why can't they get into top schools? Interesting. Well, why can't they get into top schools? Well, let's look back to the Department of Justice.
Okay. And
It's also before you go into that, you're just totally moving the goalpost to some other conversation you want to have. This has nothing to do with that. You're just now going down this, road about the college admissions and how Asians are discriminated against or whatever, and black people get all the jobs instead of white people and stuff. But it's like you're just talking about this because you have a better case to make in this regard. It's kind of completely fucking irrelevant to the actual debate that's happening. But you have to distract everyone and be like, oh, this conversation that's happening. Well, let's actually have this one that's kind of tangentially related. That's going to push a bunch of your buttons and piss you off and kind of make you agree with me or something, even though it's really not relevant.
Not only is it irrelevant, Gavin, you have to be so painfully stupid to bring this specific court case up that he's going to reference as a gotcha against the Biden Justice Department, and then also talk about how not enough people are getting in. What he's going to do is he's going to painfully misunderstand what he's talking about, all the while coming at it from this super arrogant, cringy conservatives like to go upstream and figure out this problem. Meanwhile, I'm about to say a bunch of shit that is all just empty virtue signaling of something that I do not understand at all. We're going to debunk it for you. Do not go anywhere.
DOJ, that's our government, folks. That was under Biden, folks, went after Yale University after a massive lawsuit was filed by a group of Asian families who
They were not Asian families.
said, we've been discriminated against for admissions in favor of other people of many colors.
Yeah.
And they were upset. And the department.
He's misunderstanding a very famous lawsuit from 2014 when a group of Asian Americans sued Harvard. Okay, so he went and cited a real lawsuit against Yale for wealth discrimination that was nothing to do with racism at all, and in fact adequately addressed a problem, which is he's going to lay out here. But he's completely conflating it with an Obama era court case that was basically like whether or not we should have affirmative action to help you get into college, and a bunch of Asian American families sued Harvard. I think North Carolina was another one of the universities that had a lawsuit that was involved with, but that's over a decade old at this point. That had nothing to do with Joe Biden's Justice Department, and this arrogant prick is trying to slide it in there because he knows his audience won't notice.
Department of Justice looked at it and said, wait a minute. And the Asian suit had tons of facts and figures and some discovery things that they had found. So the U.S. Department of Justice looks into it and goes, and went after Yale. So the U.S. Department of Justice filed a suit against Yale admissions, and all the discovery showed, absolutely not opinion here, they were discriminating against whites and Asians that were American citizens.
And that's what I have to cut in. And
I could have gotten into Harvard, Zach. We were denied our places in Yale, Harvard. This is what was robbed from us by DEI.
It's crazy. It's crazy because he's actually so close to making a really good point here, but he conflates it with so much bullshit. And he's so married to only sticking up for white people and Asian people. He doesn't want to talk about any other races. And he's like, it's them against us, folks. It's the Biden Justice Department, folks. And he's trying to make it seem like a bad thing that the Biden administration went after Yale for something that he's then celebrating that they went after. which is totally incoherent. But then let's also take a look at the actual lawsuit that was brought against Yale and a bunch of other universities and see if there's anything to disagree with about it. Yale and other elite universities favored children of wealthy donors in admissions process, lawsuit says. So the Biden Justice Department, which I have no problem criticizing until the cows come home, did one good thing here, and it's pretty hard to argue with. So some elite universities favored wealthy students in admissions processes. According to a new motion in a lawsuit, originally accused Yale University and 16 other schools of conspiring to shortchange students' financial aid, right? Basically, what the lawsuit realizes is that they were more likely to accept individuals from wealthy families because they could pay the full cost of admissions. They would pay the $180,000 a year or whatever ridiculous sum of money it is to go to Yale or go to Notre Dame or go to any of these other universities that were cited in this lawsuit. And it was also true that international students were having better luck because they would not apply for FAFSA. They would just go ahead and pay out of pocket, right? That's wrong. The PBD guys are going to go ahead and talk about how that's wrong. They're correct to do so, right? But the Biden administration did that. Their Justice Department was the one that we're going to crack down on it. And for some reason, instead of just being like, yeah, this was a good thing, they had to conflate it with a decade-old lawsuit that made Asian people and white people the center of the discrimination, instead of just saying, no, it's all working class people that were getting screwed because at the end of the day, their politics isn't about class, it's about race.
Yeah. Also, right-wingers love to talk about this shit. That like, how DEI cost Asian and white people spots at Yale and Harvard and shit. It's like, I'm sorry, bro, but if you're someone who is even in the position to be applying to Harvard or Yale, guess what? You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Even if some DEI person takes your spot at fucking Yale, guess what? There's like 7 or 8 other Ivy Leagues, and you don't even have to go to an Ivy League. There's like 20 other colleges that might as well be Ivy Leagues that are probably about as good as Ivy Leagues that you can still apply to and still get scholarships to, even if like some freaking Nicaraguan, Ugandan DEI hire takes your spot at Yale. I'm sorry, but you're going to be fine. If you're in that position where Yale or Harvard would even consider accepting you in the first place, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. You're literally in the top like 1% of the entire world as far as like career opportunities. You're going to be fine. It's crazy. It's crazy to cry about and bitch about that segment of the most pampered, privileged population. The people that are, getting denied a spot at Harvard or whatever. Like, just go to fucking Brown. You know what I'm saying? Go to Cambridge or whatever. Like, there's so many others.
Yeah, Gavin, actually, I was visiting my sister in Boston, you know what? And the Uganda-Rawans were on a takeover. Everywhere you looked, it was like, wow, that scholarship went to a Ugandan-Nicaraguan fella? I didn't know. I didn't realize the takeover was coming. All the Uganda-Rawans, everywhere you go. No, I'm kidding.
It's the white replacement they've been talking about.
But anyway, I skipped ahead a little bit in the conversation. I mostly wanted to start talking about how they are incapable of making a point that's just about class for everyone from the MAGA movement, right? They talk about how they hate identity politics. They talk about how they hate wokeness. They talk about how the left makes everything about race. And then he cites one really solid lawsuit, right? That I'm sure it had nothing to do with Joe Biden, right? This was the tireless effort of some good person in the Justice Department being like, fuck this. I'm going to bring a lawsuit on behalf of these people because regular working class kids might dream of getting into Princeton or Yale or wherever and then get hosed out of the financial aid that they desperately need, right? That's a good thing. But instead of just saying, you know what, this was a good thing, they had to make it about Asian people and white kids being discriminated against. And that kind of sets the tone for how this entire H-1B visa is going to unfold, right? You have PBD, who's going to sit back and talk to you like this, and he's going to say, listen to me, I ran a successful company, okay? I know how to be a good businessman. And then you have the other guy who's like, I'm a professor. I need to swim upstream a little bit and find out that it's Donald Trump taking a shit up the river, and he's emptying a couple of porta potties, but what could you do? It cuts cost. We found out it cuts cost, and that's his argument for everything. But anyway, do you have anything to add, or would you like to go back? This is that 23-minute timestamp. Yeah.
Let's take a look here, guys. This is real funny because, again, you guys have to understand the context of this episode we're watching. It's in the shadow of a massive amount of backlash. And some of it genuinely was racist against Patrick Bet-David. Not that I am shedding any tears for the guy. He's a piece of garbage. He'll gladly throw undocumented immigrants under the bus and act like there's no problem with that. Oh, but I'm a legal immigrant, so I'm one of the good ones. I'm allowed to be here. But fuck all this riffraff. All these poor people without documentation. They don't belong here. They can't generate me any money for my MLM. They can't generate Elon Musk any money working as engineers, so they're basically worthless. Condemn them to death in the deserts of Nicaragua or wherever the fuck they arrived from. That's his worldview, unironically. But what you guys are about to see that's pretty funny is when PBD realizes that, oh, the right-wingers have some of that smoke for his ass too. When some of the people he's in league with are straight up fucking racist. So you guys are going to enjoy this.
Look at the expression on his face, guys. Pretty revealing. Let's watch.
Fundamentals in Europe. Why do they translate from that leak? It's results. So my only concern with this argument is, yes, keep the jobs in America. Yes, give the jobs to American graduates. Yes, make it competitive here. And if some of these guys are coming here that are the smartest people, why not keep them? Why not recognize them? Why not respect the fact that they create jobs? One of the tweets I said, our founding fathers, a guy responds back and says, those are not your founding fathers.
Mm-hmm.
Guy posts a picture of the Shavi Run, says, that's your founding fathers.
So funny.
But that tells you what, a part of this, there's nationalists and there's white nationalists.
Mm-hmm.
White nationalists, Vinny, don't want people like us here.
I know.
They just don't. White nationalists are a very different model.
Bro. I'm sorry, guys. We're not laughing, but it's just like, dude, what the hell did you expect, right? Like, it is scary, right? Like, I do feel in a vacuum for, people who have a background like PBD, the fact that, if you come from Iran, like, there are going to be people who are racist against you, but it's kind of like, we talk a lot about the face-eating leopard party. Okay, we talk a lot about that, and we say, hey, man, we're white guys, right? And we think these people are disgusting, racist, and foul. We don't want anything to do with them. But other people, they'll be like, well, I just have, that Mediterranean hue. And I think they're going to jive with me, man. I think I'm going to take my chances with the white nationalists and the Ku Klux Klanners and the neo-Nazis. And you know what? I'm going to try and cash as many checks as I can before it, rolls back to me. That was their strategy. They were like, oh, we can hang with the people who hate us. Like, they hate these undocumented folks more, right? And then on top of that, one last thing before I pass it to Gavin, even laden in their own like wokeness, Gavin, like, oh, we have a vision for regular America, right? Like, they still have this deeply elitist worldview where, like, because some guy knows how to use a computer better than another guy, his children are somehow more or less valuable to our society. Him as an individual, more or less valuable to our society. His, right to liberty, the pursuit of happiness, all of that shit. That's completely lost on them, right? We are a nation of immigrants, regardless of whether or not you know how to write code. Guess what, assholes? None of you fuckers that voted for Donald Trump are ever going to be writing like cloud computing codes, right? I'm sorry, but the dude's down swinging hammers for a living. If I couldn't run my mouth like I do, everyone, I would be swinging a hammer. There are hammer swingers and there are computer scientists. You cannot convince me that any of you or me, or I'm sorry, Gavin, you're in the same boat with me. You might not have been a hammer swinger, but you were not going to be a computer scientist. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's what's happening is all these MAGA people, the actual base, they're realizing that about people like Elon Musk, Patrick Bet-David, Vivek Ramaswamy, etc. They're realizing that they got used by all these fucking elitist oligarchs who are basically no different than the liberals they hate so much, right? All these people, all they view human beings as, immigrants and Americans, all they view them as is assets for their business. Can this person generate me more money? That's why the only immigrants they care about or have any humanity for are the smart ones, the ones from India that can come over and work at their tech company that they can exploit the intelligence of so that that person doesn't go and, prostitute their talents off to another one of our adversaries. That's how they view everything. It's like, oh, the only value of immigration is to keep America ahead in the war against China, because if we don't poach all these brilliant minds from India, then China and Russia will. But again, if you're poor or if you're not talented in the tech field, then they don't give a fuck. Then you're worthless, and they want you to die in whatever war-torn developing country you came from. You know what I'm saying? They don't give a fuck. But yeah, let's keep watching a little bit more of this.
And they can have that argument, but this got very ugly very quick.
Yeah, no, you're spot on with the white nationalist thing. So what I'm concerned about is you made an amazing tweet because your prediction has basically come true. What they're doing to basically divide and conquer Trump versus Elon. That's what I'm focused on. Can you turn me up a little bit, guys? But it's sort of what you're seeing the comments that are being made by Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller. They're sort of. It's,
What do you think about it?
so here's what I'm thinking.
Can I read the tweet so the audience
Yeah,
knows,
please
and then
do.
I'll go to
Please
you?
do.
So here's what Steve Bannon said. Steve Bannon said, let me be clear on H-1B. I want zero. The whole thing is about, they're only geniuses, H-1B visas. That's not what it's about. It's about making American jobs and bringing over essentially what have become indentured servants at lower wages. The thing's a scam by the oligarchs in Silicon Valley to basically take jobs from American citizens, give them to what become indentured servants from foreign countries and pay them less. Simple. That's what he said.
And he does have a point right there. There is a point to basically what's happening with these guys with these H-1B visas. You said, you can pay them less versus an American.
Oh, yeah.
By the
He
way,
was definitely happy.
I know people who basically outsource jobs and say, well, I can pay an American worker here $30 an hour. I can pay some guy in the Philippines or in India $4 an hour. So it works both ways. But what's happening with MAGA versus Musk, it's sort of like MAGA 1.0 versus MAGA 2.0. Who's MAGA 1.0? The guys that have been there 10 years versus the people that have been there basically 10 months. So you have the nationalists that you talked about right there. So you have the working class people, the America first that want to put America first. They're sort of the populists. They're the protectionists. You might almost say isolationists. MAGA 2.0, the people that have basically been there for 10 months versus 10 years. These are honestly former liberals, some of them. They're tech people. A lot of them are billionaires. They're the elites. They're a different form of MAGA. So the interesting thing here is when you do...
And what's crazy is this guy's talking about PBD. When he says
100%.
these liberal tech bros, he's talking about the Vivek Ramaswamys. He's talking about the Elon Musk, obviously, as he mentioned, right? But that is the PBD guy. So this guy is basically looking at his host, and I don't know if he realizes it or not, but shredding the entire argument that he's about to say. And there's another guy that I think we might want to hear from, Gavin, who shreds and says very similar things to Steve Bannon about H-1 visas, and that's Vivek Ramaswamy. Do you have anything to add before we play this incriminating video?
A lot of the people who have come here through the H-1B system would tell you, as I would, that it's just a broken system no matter who you're seeking to serve. For example, you want to talk about special interests and lobbying? This is direct Silicon Valley lobbying that said that if you get your H-1B visa and you're hired by one company, you're effectively like a slave. You can't switch to a different company. That's not a free labor market. So there's so much that's broken and bureaucratized. Here's the next question about the H-1B visa system is why the heck do we do it on the basis of a lottery when you could actually just select the very best people? So there's a lot that's broken about the administrative state, the bureaucracy. My general approach is when something's broken in government, you can't really fix it when it's lasted that long. You need to shut it down, start with a blank slate, and rebuild from scratch. And that's just a stylistic point that I've applied to this issue as to any other.
So basically, he's lying his freaking ass off right there, everyone. And you can see, because his tweet was what inspired this entire discourse on MAGA, and he has a completely different position, 12 months later?
Yep, 100%. 100%. That's what you're saying to these dumb fucks when you're trying to get their votes, and then you turn around after getting power based on their votes and saying, oh, sorry, guys, turns out you were all fucking retarded, and I took advantage of you, and I conned you so that I can have power over you and so that I can control you. That's exactly what is happening. If you fast forward a little bit on this one too, Zach, to about 30 minutes, there's another great timestamp, and then we can move on to one last PBD related video that I would love to get your reaction to.
Based.
I'm saying what he says, the reason I'm in America, along with so many other critical people that built SpaceX and Tesla and hundreds of other companies, that America's strong because of H-1B. Take a big step back and go F yourself. That's from the face. Movie. What is
Tropic
it?
Thunder.
Tropic Thunder.
I will go to war on this issue, the likes of which you cannot possibly comprehend. Okay.
That was a quote from, I think, Les Grossman.
Yeah.
Never go for
but you know why he's saying that? I mean, he came here on one.
Yeah.
So to him, that's personal. That's a success story. Now, to somebody who was born here and they're white and they were raised in a certain way where they're white nationalists, okay, you view me as go back to Iran, deport Elon back to, what do you call it, South Africa. Deport Vivek back to India, right? And you make those types of comments. All right, I don't think that's majority of America. I think that's less than 5%.
Less than 5%, bro. It's not less than 5%. It's not. What fucking movement do you think you're part of, bro? What do you think the number one? What do you think the number one fucking call of the movement you're part of was? Mass deportations, bro. Mass deportations, not just of a few criminals. They'll say that shit. Oh, the only people that are going to get deported are like the criminals, the ones that like, you know, raped 20 white women or something. Oh, they'll get deported, but like, you know, not me.
It's crazy. It's crazy because the one through line that MAGA has from old MAGA to new MAGA is that they were able to wrangle everyone around race and replacement rhetoric, right? It was a big push to be like, you are being pushed out by this new minority group, right? And I don't think that PBD sat with himself long enough and maybe looked in the mirror close enough and said, hey, the things that people are using to make these decisions are 100% reptile brain, antiquated, racist, impulse, senseless, whatever, right? And then you hold up a picture of a guy like PBD, and then you hold up a picture of any number of people who are crossing the southern border. How different do they really look at a cursory glance, right? Now, he would talk about how Iran is a totally different culture. They have a completely different history. It's an ancient culture, right? All these kinds of things. That's what PBD would say, and he would be totally correct to say that. But to a racist asshole that's America first, rah, he sees that you're brown, and he's like, everybody, why'd you come to America then? This is the land of the whites. We're going to make America white again. We're going to get all the Haitians out of here. We're going to get all the Browns out of here. It's going to be like 1955 again. That's what they wanted. That's what the whole MAGA dream was, right? That's what the Charlie Kirks wanted, right? That's why it's crazy to pretend that it was ever any other mission. It's ridiculous to pretend that you're surprised when the chickens come home to roost, when you should really just be strong-arming your position and being like, fuck you, I'm taking over the Republican Party.
Yeah, 100%. It's a pretty pathetic way to go about responding to your critics. Again, by just, I mean, even though you're right, even though you're 100% right to call them racist, I still think it's 100% pathetic to engage in this as someone who's been beating the drum for MAGA and acting like anyone who talks about racism is just a triggered SJW and, oh, like, you know, you're just so obsessed with victimhood. You want to talk about racism. And then all of a sudden, the MAGA movement turns on you. You get criticized for an admittedly substantive policy issue. This H-1B visa thing is a real conversation that's being had. And all of a sudden, the first thing you go to, the first card you pull is, oh, you were being racist. It's just white supremacists that are attacking me. I don't know, bro. This is the bed that you fucking made for yourself. You know, maybe you should take these complaints seriously. These are the people that fucking pay your bills. Either way, luckily the comment section is flat out in rejection of PBD's ideology here, at least from what I can tell. This one says you're flat out wrong. PBD. This is one I referenced earlier. I've seen other comments regarding PBD seemingly changing lately. I agree. He seems sometimes to be rude, condescending, cutting people off, angry, and self-righteous. I've criticized the way he's treated Rob, Tom, and Adam unprovoked. I've watched this podcast for a long time, but I'm feeling disappointed lately. So I definitely see some backlash, you know, materializing. As it says here, PBD 100% ran a pyramid scheme company. We had one of his centers in Oak Brook, Illinois. So again, this is what I was saying. This is well documented. There are people that IRL have been affected by PBD's scam operation. So for him to come out here and deny it, like we're going to see in a second, it's insane. There's a well-documented history of this being the case. But with that being said, Zach, do you want to get back into this? Because he is going to get into the accusation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, that's the far right.
Ultra-nationalists.
That's the far right. And the far left wants open borders and let everybody come in here. Let's legalize everyone. The far right wants, if you're not a white nationalist, get the hell out of here. The problem here is you as a consumer not knowing the position of the individual before they say it, and you think everyone is in that position. They're not. Not everyone's in that position. So this is why it's caused a little bit of confusion. I'm reading a book right now by Robert Half about how recruiting firms were grown in the 80s. And one of the things he said, he said, he's the founder of Robert Half. His name is Robert Half. He wrote this book on HR. I don't know what the book's name is. It's actually really good. He explains how in the 70s, one of the things that happened in the 70s and 80s is the media, every time you would see somebody become a billionaire, everybody would say he made his billions by hurting someone. So the image was the only way you can get rich is by what? Hurting somebody. By telling you, scam artists, con artists, all this other stuff. Some of the words, I mean, a community notes section came up, Rob, if you can pull this up. I saw one on, they called Vivek scammer, con artist. They called. There's a bunch, but here's
It's
one
such
right
a
here.
lazy, weak
But put
argument.
this one up there right there on the tweet that I put up. Look at the bottom
Don't worry, boss. I'm a company man. I'll lay in traffic for you.
there. Patrick Bet-David made his money by founding a predatory multi-level marketing pyramid scheme, which he then used to market himself as a business guru on YouTube. He is essentially a scam artist. By the way,
Stop it.
the community notes allowed that for a couple hours. Then it was taken down. Okay, that's
He bitched enough to get it taken down, though, and I think that's really critical. Free speech, Elon, they want to complain about Elon, whatever. The powerful people, the people who Elon knows are his last line of defense. Like, Elon knew when he pissed off these guys so bad, and they were on his side, right? There's very few people who are going to continue to ride with Elon on the H-1B visa. He needs PBD to be one of the big voices with him because it's so unpopular within the Republican Party he's aligned himself with. He's still going to cherry pick and kiss this guy's ass and make it right with him after he pissed him off.
That's the whole community notes concept. Wikipedia and community notes are somewhat similar. I know Elon. I actually like community notes, to be honest with you. The only thing you have to be careful with community notes is that now went everywhere. Hey, this is what it is. At the end of the day, you know how hard it is to build a national insurance agency dealing with regulators in every state. Tom was the president of the insurance company. He's the CSO of it till today. You're dealing with every single agency. We pay taxes in God knows how many states. To grow a company like that, and then for somebody to cut a check for $250 million after they do quality of earnings, which Tom, can you tell everybody what a quality of earning is?
So this is the fucking leader of the scam. This guy, he said is, oh my God. I guess I missed that. This guy's the leader of the scam.
Yep. All these fucking people are from the insurance agency. That's what you're going to find out. They start sharing stories and you'll realize that all the fucking people on the set are from the same world.
That's hilarious. You guys remember earlier in this stream, we played the CoffeeZilla video where we showed how there was 0.13% making $849,000. And then you had the 0.14% making $600,000, and then you had the 6% that was making $60,000. These four guys in the room, I bet you, account for that entire top 2% of the profitable income that was made from the insurance company. And they're all here, and they're all further and deeper in on the scam. That makes sense to me. Now we finally realize where the success stories are, because I knew they had to be within literally reach out and touch PBD. That's the only way you make money in a pyramid scheme like this.
But Zach, you idiot. Trust me, this guy's going to clear it all up after he explains the true nature of their business. I think you're going to retract all of that.
I'm a small-minded man. Let him explain it to me.
Yes.
What a quality of earnings report. So everyone knows how to sell a house. In the middle of selling a house, you need an inspection. If you're buying a house, your bank requires the inspection to ensure that the house is in good shape, and they're going to give you a mortgage for it, right?
Yeah.
Very simple.
Yep.
An inspection times 1,000 is a quality of earnings report that gets done on your business. So they say, hey, we like to do an inspection. And part of that inspection is going to be quality of earnings. What do? They're looking for fraud. They're looking for offshore bank accounts. They're looking for transactions.
They
going back to the
literally
owner.
go through your bank account and watch every single
Correct.
expense, anything you ever bought, purchase, personal, everything.
Wire
It's like a
transfers.
forensics. It's like a
Wire
forensics.
transfers
But you have
from-
to do it. You're about to cut a $250 million
Exactly.
check.
So think of it as you're selling a company, and the inspection, the house inspection to sell that company, is called a quality of earnings report. And it only gets done by people like PwC and Accenture, big companies. You sell a company for more than
Yeah.
$50 million.
A lot of words.
It is a
Yeah, they're not.
I have yet to hear how this is not a scam. A lot of words for.
And what's crazy is I actually am in a unique position, right? I've talked about this in the past. I worked at a venture capital firm. After I was done working at that firm, I got poached by a startup called Zego. Okay. And Zego got purchased by Vista Equity while I was there. And I was one of maybe 11 employees that worked at this place, right? So I was pretty on the ground when I was dealing with everybody during the acquisition process. And yeah, again, this is all word salad from the guy. What you really do is you go through and you're like, yep, this is how profitable we were. This is our loss statement, right? This is all of the liabilities that the business has. There's a very clear way to present this information. And the fact that this guy is making it so opaque just lets you believe or makes it clear that he's a con man.
And then he thinks you're all are stupid.
Yep.
Seriously, it should be pretty easy to say whether or not the company you made your money off of is a scam. If you have to toss the baton over to the other business person in the room to explain what some complicated concept is and filibuster for 5 minutes before you then go on to all right, bro. Clearly you're obfuscating for a reason.
100%.
a big inspector. It takes months to do. It costs at least $250,000 in my experience. That's what it costs. And guess who pays that? If you're selling your company, you have to pay that before it closes. So guess what? If the deal falls through, the economy crashes, they can't get their loans.
It's an audit.
Guess what? You have to pay it anyway.
But here's the point. So
This is only a problem if you're a shady ass company that's not very sought after. I promise you, if you're actually the kind of company that somebody wants to purchase, they're going to roll out the red fucking carpet with you. They're going to fly you out to San Diego. They're going to get you a condo on Solana Beach. Trust me, I've been there and I ain't that successful.
if a person's never gone through building a business or selling it, I don't blame you for not knowing.
How could you not know what a quality of
how
earnings
can
is
you
and
not
how
know? Like,
hard
for
it is?
example, I don't know what it was to, mother's labor, all this stuff. Then I saw my wife have 4 kids back to back to back to back, all without, what do you call it, Pitocin, without epidural. I'm like, oh my God. The level of respect for your wife goes up when you watch them give birth. You're like, damn, I don't know the pain, but oh my God, salute for what you do.
Oh my God, we
Then you
started
see-
at my company's not a scam. I promise it's not a pyramid scheme. And now we're at watching your wife give birth gives you so much respect for the woman. When you see her squeeze out your third child, your respect goes up.
See them nursing while you're
Hard
sleeping,
work.
trying to run a company. They're waking up throughout the night 3, 4, 5 times a night. You're like, wow, I thought I worked hard. I don't, the amount of hours a mother puts in when they're working. And
Bro, just tell everybody you're an absent. I guarantee you the only time this guy shows his kids affection is when he's got a whistle around his neck. He's not the soccer coach. His after many tearful nights and pleading by his wife, he no longer coaches his kids' sports teams. He just stands there with a whistle anyway in a Nike tracksuit, and he sits there and he's he's down on the sidelines. He's like, ref, hey, excuse me, guard, let me explain to you really quickly, ref. Please come over here. Please come over here. I was a soccer referee on the sideline. I just know this man so well from the experiences that I have at Heritage Soccer Complex. He was one of the kinds of guys you cannot forget, and he is every soccer dad now to me, and it's PBD. I can't unsee it.
and raising a child. Hey, true role models, mothers don't work 80 hours a week when they have a newborn. They're working 168 hours a week, literally, because you're not sleeping half the time. So, we have to keep in mind that this concept that I explained 2 months ago, that I said, you're going to see them pinning Trump against Musk, and there's possibility of there being a civil war. FYI, think about what Democrats and the establishment wanted for Christmas. Imagine.
So because he got called out on Twitter by Community Notes as a scam artist, now he's going to lecture the audience about how talking about this feeds into the MAGA civil war. And guess who wants that to happen? Democrats. It's you're playing into the hands of the Democrats who want this fracturing to occur. Again, still no explanation as to how his company was not a scam. I have yet to hear it. All he did was pass the baton over to his friend who, went for like 5 minutes and talked about a bunch of bullshit, but we have no actual explanation on the record of how his insurance company was anything other than the scam that it obviously was. Like I said, something that is well documented. People literally worked for this pyramid scheme. They, what a pyramid scheme is if you've been a part of one. People aren't just making it up.
Yeah, it was literally a plot of The Office. It was so obvious.
Yeah.
Imagine what you wrote. My kids all wrote a card on what they want for their Christmas, except for my oldest son. He says, I want shares in Manect. That guy's wired in a very different way. Okay. And, he goes, Vinny asked him, he says, hey, what do you want for Christmas?
Chairs and what?
Cheers. I mean, I don't know. His son's too busy getting after it, Gavin. He wouldn't understand.
Just making fun of his son on the podcast for not wanting cool gifts or some shit. This is most of the main part that I wanted to react to from the episode.
Cool. Yeah. Did you want to play any of the debunking of when he went on the Joe Rogan Experience, or do you want to move on to the next story?
This would be really fun just to quickly play the first couple minutes of.
Sure.
Just because it's so funny.
It's
I was not
cringy.
aware of how much PBD embarrassed himself on Joe Rogan when he went on. But this is so funny, guys. I think you're gonna find this pretty funny too, Zach.
I think it's going to take a minute. So I want to give you the gifts I got you, bro. Okay. I want to give you the gifts that I got you here. I think one of them may make it on the wall. It's a competition because you got like 100 pieces sitting around that's not on the wall.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll see what's going to happen. First of all,
So Joe Rogan had fucking Santa Claus on his podcast today. He came with a sack of gifts and covered them up until the end of the podcast. You could see something covered up in the background, and the whole time you're thinking, what the fuck is covered up in the background? Patrick Simp David knew exactly what he was doing. He knows that these long-ass podcasts have poor retention rates, so he came up with a clever idea to force idiots like me to watch all the way through to the end. And at first, I thought he was just being a massive fucking simp, which seems to be his signature move these days, but I didn't give him enough credit. Here's the real reason Patrick Bet-David brought a sack of gifts to JRE.
Give it to you later on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Anytime, brother. So.
This is the most shit anybody's ever given me.
Really? There you go.
It's
yeah.
like Christmas.
I got that for him. By the way, my book is coming out in December. I mean, you can't buy the book right now. My book comes out December 5th. But they sent me the first copy of the book. It's titled Choose Your Enemies Wisely. And it's not an easy thing to choose your enemies wisely. Most people choose the wrong enemies. Portfolio sent us the first copy of Choose Your Enemies Wisely. And my first copy they gave to me, I'm giving to you, brother.
Thank you.
Again, people can't buy till December 5th, but these are gifts from us to you.
The old book plug. Here I was thinking our boy just came for a chat in a 3-piece suit in the middle of fucking summer. I got to say, though, that Lenny Bruce gift, his original mic from 1959, yeah, that's a fucking cool gift. I'm not gonna lie.
Who's one of your favorite comedians of all time?
Richard Pryor.
Who else?
Lenny Bruce.
Okay. So I called around and I spoke to Lenny Bruce's daughter. When he would go on the road, he had a mic stand and a mic that he would use. I think this is from 1959. This is the original mic Lenny Bruce used.
So towards the end of the second hour, Joe starts to get a little annoyed
Isn't
because
that crazy, though?
Patrick cringed.
Like, they don't even know each other that well, for one. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sorry, but as a grown-ass man, like, as much as I would appreciate a super nice gift like that, it would almost put you in a weird position. It's like you're the president or some politician and some Iranian official starts giving you like gold watches or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what are you trying to buy from me? Like, what influence are you trying to, what's going on here? That's the vibe I get from this. This Patrick Bet-David guy comes into Joe's office and starts giving him these gifts. Like, what are you trying to fucking corrupt me? Is this like some Bob Menendez style shit? Like, what is going on? These are like priceless fucking artifacts that you're just handing over to me like it's nothing.
He just walked in. He was like, Joe's Italian, Cosa Nostra. I know how to work with these guys. I know how to negotiate. I'm going to earn a favor one day. Joe Rogan, one day I'm going to ask to go flirt with him. And that day may never come. But one day I'll ask you, please retweet a few items. Okay. This is Lenny Bruce. It would be it gives me, mafioso kind of a vibes for sure. Now, on the one hand, if I'm Joe Rogan, I've got a lot of cool shit, but this guy brought the heat. I'm not going to lie. The Lenny Bruce, the stuff that you can't just go out and buy. So you're like, okay, maybe this guy.
I'll let you sell your book on my show for the microphone.
You know what? I never got to go on Oprah. This feels kind of close. You know what? Let's just ride this one out. But I also could hear Joe's voice every time he's like, oh, thank you. It's just like, what's happening right now? I don't know if I'm thrilled about it. And, it's not like Duncan Trussell was like, Joe, you've been my best friend for 15 years. Like, here's this gift. And Joe would still be like, well, a little weird to give me this on the podcast, bro. Like, I mean, we've been friends for 15. Right. So pretty much anytime you're giving somebody a gift on air, that everybody's going to ask themselves why you did it on air. Why did you feel the need to show that to everyone? Clearly, it wasn't just to butter up Joe Rogan. I did not get further than this in the video when you sent it to me earlier, Gavin. What the hell does he say is the real reason? Should we keep? Well, I'm intrigued.
It gets even more humiliating. The dick sucking of Joe Rogan. And by the way, huge shout out to this channel. I'd actually never heard of him, but it's called Podcast Cringe. I highly recommend you guys watch the whole video. We're not going to react to it all, but I was laughing my ass off this morning as I took this in because I was like, Jesus Christ, I knew PBD was a shameless guy. But come on, bro. You got to play it a little bit more cool than this. This is just, you're giving away the game, bro, as you were about to see specifically.
David kept going on and on about how Joe should interview Trump, and he straight up asks him if that's the reason why he came on the podcast.
I would say if you don't do the podcast with him, you're helping the establishment and you're helping a guy named Joseph Biden. I think you're helping that person. That's kind of weird. But indirectly in your mind, you're helping Joseph Biden win by not interviewing Trump.
Did you come on this podcast specifically to
No.
try to get me to interview Trump?
No, you brought up Trump multiple times.
No, Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, let me tell you exactly why I came on this podcast. I came on this podcast because I believe in one thing: personal enrichment. Okay, I'm trying to climb the ladder. Do you see that ladder, Joe Rogan? Do you see the ladder right there? It points to the sky. You understand me, Joe Rogan. I understand you. We're two kind of guys. We're the kind of guys, we climb up the ladder. Where does the ladder go? We don't know, but we know we need to go up it, up that ladder, chase that ladder. Okay, that's what I understand.
I never brought it up.
It seems like you did. I think you did.
I could tell you, Joe, don't go live with this podcast and keep it until after you do Trump's interview, and then say, Pat told me don't do it, and then they're going to release this, even if it's 3 months from now. I wouldn't care if you did that. Your guys' support, I respect. I love the work you're doing. I'm talking to you as if the camera's not on right now. Don't go live with this. Go live a week after Trump, and we can date it right now. We can show the phone. It's 3/12. August 2nd, Wednesday. Okay, here's camera. If you don't go live with this until after Trump, I don't care.
Well, I'm going to go live.
I'm just saying to you, from my perspective, what I'm trying to tell you is I don't want you to.
And Joe is like immediately like, bro, don't talk to me about the scheduling of when I release this shit. You're sitting in my room. I understand. I'm going to do it the hell I want to. You came in here, you sat in my place, and I rolled out the door for you. Yeah, my show, okay? And PBD's like, so let me back up a little bit because maybe there's something that you don't understand.
Think there is my purpose of being here in Austin. I've been working on a gift for you for God knows how long, which at the end of the podcast, when you said we're done, I'll show you, a couple of these gifts. One of them took us a while to get. I came here because, as a Middle Eastern, you're opening up a comedy club. We talked, you dreamed the way you build it. Everybody, tells me I got to go. I'm like, dude, I got to go, but I don't want to go empty handed. So I came here to give you gifts. Then you said, if you're here, let's do a podcast. And I said, no problem. Let's do the podcast. So now we're here, I'm going to give you the gifts, all that stuff. No one's here with a motive. The motive is, as a friend, as a guy that's in the same space as you, and you're the Michael, you're the Brady of the space, I'm encouraging Michael and Brady to consider this. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll consider it.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. Thank you.
Man,
Thank you. He's like, bitch, shut the fuck up. I don't need you to grovel at me. I don't need you to like you're the Tom Brady of podcasting, bro. Like, shut the fuck up. This is so humiliating. Joe Rogan knows who he is. He knows that, these idiots worship him already. He doesn't need you to come and like fucking brown nose him and suck his dick on camera and humiliate himself. Here, I brought you some gifts. Mr. King.
all I have to say is move over, Nancy Reagan. There's the new throat goat. I mean, wow, the gag reflex on that guy to go for so long without, the saliva's bursting out of his mouth. His eyes are rolling back.
100%. Going back to The Office, it's exactly like that episode of The Office where Michael gets the iPod for Ryan.
Yeah.
It's like Secret Santa and there's a $20 limit, but Michael wants everyone to know that he bought the latest iPod for Ryan, right? And then Ryan doesn't even like give a fuck. He's like, who the fuck? Like, I don't want to be your fucking friend, loser. Like, bitch, you're embarrassing yourself trying to grovel at me. I don't want your fucking iPod. That's how Joe Rogan feels, 100%. And again, it's like I don't have anything against a nice gift. That's a beautiful gesture. If someone gave me a gift, even if it was something that was like really expensive, I would be so I would be honored. You know what I mean? But it has to be in private. It can't be a fucking publicity stunt.
Right.
It's not. That's the Office reference, right? Michael didn't just give Ryan the iPod behind the scenes and like, hey man, I really appreciate our friendship. I wanted to go above and beyond. He did that because he wanted everyone else in the circle to know that, oh, this guy has money. This guy can buy the latest iPod and give it to whoever he wants. That was the point. It was a gift to himself. And that's the same thing here. PBD wants everyone to say, oh shit, this guy's, he has the ability to fucking give Joe Rogan this microphone from 1950 of Lenny Bruce or whatever. That's pretty cool. This guy must be one of the cool kids.
Yeah, it's nauseating self-promotion. It's advertisement completely.
I don't know what you guys think about that, but if Joe wants to have Trump on his podcast, that's up to Joe. PBD was clearly just fishy.
Cool. Yeah, that was pretty humiliating, right? We should check back in on podcast cringe. That's good for laughs. Everybody check that out if you're into cringing along with the podcast.
Yeah, totally. Holy shit, though. PBD, that's a real new low. That's a real new low for him right off the bat. Trump has not even been elected, and this idiot cannot read the room. He cannot read the room. He thinks he's going to win this war with the hordes of, the MAGA faithful, all these idiots out there that have internalized how awesome being white is, and the great replacement theory, and, the Indians are coming to take over not even just America, but Canada too. And now you think you're going to sway them with some intellectual bullshit, with some like motivational pep talk? Come on.
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir.